Simone Knego, welcome to WeCan. You lead without limits with your purpose of helping high-achieving women build real confidence from the kitchen table to the boardroom. You're a keynote speaker, an author, a podcast host, and a mum of a multicultural family. You help women foster the kind of confidence that comes from the inside, not from achievements. And you wrote The Extraordinary Unordinary, and your new book, Real Confidence, a simple guide to go from unsure to unshakable, is out soon, and you're also a 2 times TEDx speaker. Simone, thank you for leading by example on WeCan. Tell us a little bit more about the messages that you want to take out into the world. What are the sort of most important messages for you to carry out into the world?
I would say, first of all, thank you for having me here. I would say the most important message that I want, women to really understand is that we don't need to change who we are. We need to change the way we see ourselves. So often we're told, oh, you need to change this, you need to change that, or we compare ourselves to others and we see what they're doing. We're like, oh, if we only did this differently. But I don't believe we need to do that at all. I believe that we need to take a look at ourselves and love ourselves for who we are. And I would say the second thing would be treat yourself as you would your best friend, right? Because the way we talk to ourselves, we would never talk to our best friend that way. The negative things we say to ourselves, we would never say those to someone we really care about. And we need to be our best friend because we're going to live with ourselves for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, very true. Simone, so talk to us about your new book, Real Confidence. And real is capital R, capital E, capital A, capital L.
So it comes out February 17th, and it is all about my real method, which stands for respect yourself, embrace your failures, ask yourself what you want, and live without limits. And that method came about after a very particular moment in time for me. I am someone that struggled with self-doubt for the majority of my life. I am now 53 years old, and when I was 42, I did something completely out of my comfort zone. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I am not a climber. I live at sea level. I, have 16 steps in my house. That's about as good as it gets. And that moment really helped me change the way that I saw myself. It helped me realize what I was capable of. And so I looked back in time and said, okay, how did I go from point A to point B? And it was really by those 4 points, understanding the importance of self-respect, not treating failures as stop signs, saying those are learning experiences. And I think one of the hardest ones for women is asking yourself what you want, because so often we do so much for everybody else and that we forget that, okay, what do we need? What do we want? And the live without limits, because we limit ourselves from the moment we wake up until the moment we go to sleep. The way we talk to ourselves, the way we talk about ourselves. It's so important that we understand that, we have a choice every single day. We have multiple choices every single day. When we wake up in the morning, we can choose to be miserable. We can choose to be happy. And, that's how I want to live my life, to say that there are no limits on what I want to do or who I can be. And especially the self-imposed ones, we have to get rid of those.
Simone, so give us a little bit more insight, because what you say it sounds amazing, right? It sounds really inspiring. It's very motivating. And then when we think about the grain of what you say, it's quite scary actually,
Mm.
because what does limitless mean, right? And where does this even, it immediately sort of invokes anxiety in my actual body, right? My
Mm.
whole body's like, limitless, what does she mean?
Yeah.
How do you feel you found that? It's almost a feeling, right? That
Mm.
that you have in your body where you feel like you can do just anything.
Yeah. I mean, again, it started with the way that I would talk to myself. So when I was younger, I got married at 21. I've been married to my husband for
Mm.
32 years. And yes, we have 6 children. But when I was a stay-at-home mom, the way I would describe myself, limiting myself. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just Rob's wife. I'm just a volunteer, not owning what I was doing, right? So being proud of exactly who I was. I was worried about what anybody else would think. I was at an event one day and I was sitting next to a CEO of a big company. And of course, we did the small talk, and she said to me, so what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. And her response was, I can't imagine anything worse. And I was like, okay, there we go. Right. And so, like, all of the things that I was thinking about, but it's ridiculous that we let other people, shape our feelings about ourselves. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, right? It's important that how we see ourselves. And yes, the idea of living limitless, I really focus on not putting limits on ourselves. So, the idea of telling yourself that you can't do something. Ask yourself if you want to instead. I have a little mindset hack that I like to use. It's got a very creative title. It's called Control Alt Delete. So back in the day, it was how we would reset a frozen computer. Now it brings up Task Manager. I don't know what Task Manager is, but I guess it manages your tasks. I have no idea. But sometimes our minds freeze too, right? We get stuck in that comparison game. We spiral in self-doubt. So control is about awareness. What's the thought that's running your day? Is it real? Is it helpful? Most of the time, the answer is no. There's several studies about the negative thoughts that we have, and one of them is out of Canada, and it said that they surveyed like 6,200 people, and 85% of our thoughts are negative, 95% are repetitive. So day after day, you have that same negative thought on repeat. So the awareness is about breaking the cycle. Alt is about alternative. Tell yourself a better story. Instead of telling yourself you can't do something, ask yourself if you want to, right? Instead of saying, what if I fail? How about when I succeed? Your words become your reality. I mean, there's so many studies around that as well. And so the way we talk to ourselves matters so much. And finally, delete. Delete the habits and beliefs that don't serve you. Delete the comparison game. Delete the belief that you're not enough. Delete the belief that you need to wait until you feel ready. I like to say that until you feel ready is like waiting for IKEA instructions to actually make sense. It is not going to happen.
So
So we need
true.
to do things. Yeah, we need to do. Like, we need to not, we spend so much time worrying about what other people are thinking. They're not thinking about us, right? They're thinking about themselves. And so we need to kind of get over that piece and say, what do I need for myself?
Yeah. Simone, now you just alluded you have six children,
Mm.
three you have birthed, physically, three you have birthed from different countries, and they're yours. And talk to us about those pivotal points that you feel led to where you are today.
So, it's interesting when we adopted our children, our friends didn't understand. They said, you can have another biological child. Why not? And I said, well, first of all, I'm a horrible pregnant person, but there are so many amazing kids in the world waiting for a family to love them. And that was a big part of our process for that. And, we see the world differently, right? I mean, we have two children from Ethiopia that are now 21 and 18. We have a 19-year-old from South Korea. And our entire family was part of the process because you don't raise a child alone. You're not in a silo when that happens.
Yeah.
You need the support of a community. And so every time we adopted, we took a vote. The kids had to write down yes or no on a piece of paper and pass it over. And I remember when we were voting on adopting our last child, uh, Olivia, my 23-year-old daughter, she was, I don't know how old at the time, less than 10. And she just wrote it down, passed it over. And I said, you didn't hesitate. And she said, Mom, we're talking about the life of another child. How could anyone vote no? And I was like, oh my gosh, you are so smart. So that, it really changed how we moved forward into things. And really helped me understand the importance of self-advocating and being proud of exactly who you are because life can get hard, right? And it's important that we know our value, we understand our value so that we can move forward in the world and change the world. Like the little things we do every day change the world.
Simone, so if I look at your life, I feel that you've done m most of the things or all of the things from where I'm sitting is that you have used your Jewish phrase, tikkun olam, repair the world, in the things that you've done. You birthed your kids, you've adopted more children. You had a very important role in a non-for-profit, and then you thought, I want to bring out messages into the world, and you've written your books and you talk about them, etc. What do you sort of feel is most important to you now, and how do you want to matter?
Mm. I think so right now it's really about focusing on helping other women realizing what they're capable of,
Mm,
and it's still about making the world a better place. So even for my book launch events, like all of the book sales that I have, all the money goes to a local women's organization for every event that I'm doing. It's just important to me because why don't we want to make the world a better place? If we can help somebody, we have a choice, right? We can choose to help somebody or we can choose to turn away. And for me, it really is about saying, okay, what can I do? And that's something important for my kids to see too, that they understand the power and the value of really not taking what you have for granted. And I know my younger kids understand it because they lived in extreme poverty, right? I mean, they understand. Like my son Ari, who's 21, he was 4.5 years old when he came home,
mm.
and so he has memories of what it was like to live in a mud hut and to not have food, and it's important. Like his focus is he wants to work in affordable housing because he feels that everybody deserves a home, and so I think the more that we live our lives in a way that aligns with our beliefs, the happier we are and the more impact we make on the world.
Simone, I've run charitable organizations in Ethiopia for over 20
Mm.
years, so I know very
Oh,
well
wow.
where your two children are coming from. And talk to us a little bit about that. What is the process like where you integrate children into your fold that come from different parts of the world?
Yeah, there's nothing about it that's easy, right? I mean, when you adopt a child, they're losing everything they had before you. So they lose their entire life, a lot of times part of their identity. We made the conscious decision, especially for our children from Ethiopia, to keep their birth names because that was the only thing they came with, right? And it was it was a very difficult thing. I mean, it's a different society. Like when we met Ari's birth family, the father is definitely the patriarch of the family, and it was all about survival, a very different thing than loving, nurturing. Not saying that families there aren't, because they are, but it's such a different thing when you're working on a daily basis just to make sure you have enough food. And, you know, I think bringing Ari home was probably the most eye-opening because he was a little bit older. So seeing things through his eyes, like when we landed in Washington Dulles and he saw a water fountain for the first time, I've never seen a kid happier in my life. Like he doesn't have to carry a bucket from the river to the house anymore. Like he's pushing the button 5 million times, and he's soaking wet afterwards, and he thought it was the best thing ever. Electricity, same kind of thing. Like he would sit and he had one word, which is mom. And he would sit at the light switch and be like, Mom, Mom, Mom. I was like, yeah, it's electricity. So seeing through his eyes, and, now he's in college. He's a junior in college. So, I think my biggest fear was when we brought them home, and it's hard to avoid this, that they are losing part of who they were.
Mm.
And, you can try as much as you want with language. And, he spoke a tribal language, so it was very hard to maintain that. And honestly, when we would reunite him with friends from the orphanage, they always spoke English. They did not want to speak they spoke, it's called Sidamina, and they didn't want to speak it. And so, they wanted to kind of integrate into society, but I do feel like as a mom, like we've lost certain pieces and hopefully one day they want to go back and see because they have siblings there and kind of really understand. They're still not ready for it, but when they're ready, we will go.
Amazing. Simone, so talk to us about what success looks like for you. What are you
Mm.
hoping for your new book, and what does success look like for you?
So for my new book, I really hope that it helps other women, really realize what they're capable of. The big understanding from the book is that confidence is a skill that you build. It's not something that you're born with. It's not something that other people have and you don't. It's something that you work on like any other skill, right? When we learn another language, we don't study one time and master it. When we go to the gym, we don't go one time and then we're super strong, right? We have to work on things. And it's the same with our mindset. It's something that we have to work on every day. So it's really helping women understand that it doesn't matter, excuse me, where you are in your life, you can build confidence, right? It's a skill and slow steps and you build it and it's not made for other people and not for you. So, as many women as I can get to read it and to really understand that, I think is really the goal. And success for me is happiness, right? It's not about how much money I have in my bank account. It's the lives that I can touch. And when I leave this earth, I want people to remember me as a person who really cared. And, it doesn't matter all of the other things. It's really that I've made a difference, even if it's to one person. I know it's more than one because I have six kids, but even, if it's to one person, then, again, I think that's what we have to think about is that the little things we do every day change the world, but we don't give ourselves credit for it. So start thinking about that when you're going through your daily life, reaching out to a stranger, kindness when you're on a call to customer service. Think about that. A lot of times they don't have anybody talk kindly to them. Try to change the script and see the difference that you can make.
Yeah. Simone, so what would you define as your challenges?
Mm. Well, I have a lot of challenges. I would say number one, I try to take on too many things and then I get overwhelmed, right? And so I I don't do New Year's resolutions, but I do a word of the year. And so this year the word is action
Mm.
because I'll create all these ideas in my head and then I don't do anything with them. So it's taking less ideas and actually taking the action. Um, being a mom of six kids is challenging. So it doesn't matter that they're getting older, the problems just get bigger, right? So the crying problems are really gone, but the bigger life event problems are there. And so, we have Noah, who's from South Korea. He's on the autism spectrum. And so he's away at college, but parenting doesn't stop, right? You
Yeah.
have to constantly be every day. Okay, did this get done? Did this get done? So there's a lot, and I still doubt myself. I still have that voice inside my head that likes to question me. I call it the what if whisperer. Ooh, what if they don't like you? What if you fail at this? And I've just learned to say, okay, control alt delete it, like get it out of there, because that's the only way I can move forward. But there's not one person that doesn't struggle with something. And it's just a reminder to ourselves. A lot of times I think that we feel alone in our struggles, but as soon as we start talking about them, we realize we are not alone.
Definitely. Simone, so how can we support you? As in we at We Can, but the listeners, how can we support you?
Yeah, I sign up for my newsletter at SimoneKnego.com, SIMONEKNEGO. Order my new book. So if you pre-order it at realconfidencebook.com, there's a bunch of pre-order bonuses that you can download. You can actually download the first couple of chapters and start reading right away. Uh, Listen to my podcast with my daughter. So I have a podcast with my 23-year-old daughter called Her Unshakable Confidence. One of the highlights of my week every week when we record because it's really fun to kind of watch her grow. And obviously, the goal of the podcast is to help her build confidence.
Yeah.
And it's working. So that's great. And then you can, follow me on social media, Simone Knego. I'm the only Simone Knego in the world at this point. So if you search me, you will find me.
Simone, if you could write a postcard to all the people on this planet, what would
Mm,
it say?
ooh, that's a hard one. First of all, I would say be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else. Everybody else is taken.
Yeah,
And there's the idea that, again, that you don't need to change who you are. You need to change the way you see yourself because we all have incredible value. We all, if we try to be like everybody else, what's the point, right? We're all
yeah,
unique, we're all different, and we can all change the world.
yeah. Amazing. Simone, so what plans and goals do you have for 2026? You have the book coming out in February. Your word is action. What else?
Yeah, so definitely a lot more speaking engagements. So I'm working on that. I also am starting a group coaching program called the Confidence Collective, and so
Perfect.
that's going to start off in February. So it's a big year, and the biggest part of my year is I am going to be a grandmother this
Oh,
summer. So I know
congratulations.
yes, my oldest son and his wife are having a baby in June, and that's the thing I'm most excited about.
Oh my God, I cannot wait for that moment. Simone, what takeaways would you like our listeners to have from your story if you sum it up?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, do it anyways. We so worry about not being ready or being afraid of failure. You know, do the things you think you can't because you can do them. But ask yourself if you want to first. Even when I climbed Kilimanjaro in 2015, I had people say to me, "Oh, I could never do that." Do you want to? No, I would never want to do that. Okay, so use that. Change the way you talk about yourself, change the way you talk to yourself. It's so important. The words that we use every day, again, your words become your reality. And again, you know, when you look at yourself in the mirror, don't look for the things that you don't like, right? Look for the things that you do because you are amazing as you are. Yep.
Simone, you're amazing. Thank you so much. I'm taking away that confidence is a skill that we need to train like a muscle, that our words are our wand. And I would love for everyone to buy the book Real Confidence, Simone Knego, and sign up to the Confidence Collective. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Thank you so much for having me here.